if you had to just at a high level here, kind of rank the top 2 or 3 lifestyle levers in order, their magnitude of effect on blood pressure, weight loss being number one, what are number 2 and number 3?
So they vary a little bit because some people are more benefited than others by some things. So let me give an example. If I have a Black American, 50% chance they're salt sensitive. If I have a white American, 20% chance they're salt sensitive. So the likelihood of blood pressure reducing by virtue of reducing sodium intake is higher in my Black American patient than it is in my white American patient. So I'm going to emphasize it more in the Black American. I'll emphasize it, but not to the same degree in the white American. So, but in general, I think that exercise is helpful as second in all for the following reason. When you exercise, a couple of things happen. Number one, you burn calories. In order to lose weight loss, if you believe Newton's second law, I think it's the second law of thermodynamics, you can't create energy. You can just change it from one form to another. If you've got a lot of energy stored in your fat tissue, then you either reduce the intake of energy, so less calories, or you increase the usage of the energy. That's where exercise comes in. So exercise is helpful as a component to a weight loss regimen. Eating less and expending more, that's the magic in terms of a non-drug approach to weight loss. So it's good for that. Second thing exercise is good for is that it improves things like your blood sugar and your triglyceride level and the good form of cholesterol, which we call high density lipoprotein, or HDL for short. So exercise gets you a little bit better what we call profile, glucose and lipid profile, because it improves the ability of insulin to work as insulin was meant to do. Insulin helps your glucose to be stable. Insulin keeps your triglycerides in the cells, not circulating. And insulin's also good for not raising your HDL cholesterol. So when you need less insulin to do its job, your HDL cholesterol tends to be better. And for guys, one of the only things we can do to increase our HDL cholesterol is to exercise, short of drugs. And the third thing is probably, I don't know where to rank it with the other two, but exercise improves your heart rate. And the reason I've mentioned before that the two things that damage elastin is the stretch and the number of heartbeats. If you exercise, for the time you're exercising, your heart rate goes up, but your resting heart rate comes down. That means that there's fewer heartbeats around the clock. And I think one of the other things about the pulse rate, aside from the fact that it's sort of fun to capture it on your Apple Watch or your Fitbit or your Oura Ring or whatever, is that when you look at the relationship of the heart rate to longevity, it's dang near as good as the blood pressure to longevity. So lesser heart rates, people tend to live longer. So exercise is useful for that as well. I rank alcohol fourth behind salt. So weight loss, exercise, salt, alcohol, and then potassium intake.
On exercise, Raymond, as a nephrologist and from a blood pressure perspective, do you have any views on the type of exercise that is most effective, be it, going out and doing a kind of steady state run or bike ride or doing sprints or lifting weights?
So I can tell you what I do. So this is one of those things where what does he say versus what does he do? My goal each day is 12,000 steps. And I try at least once and often twice a week to get to the gym because I see a cardiologist and he says to me, what do you do that, causes you to break into a sweat with exercise? So that's where the gym comes in. The walk doesn't, but the gym does, unless the walk's in the middle of August and it's 108 degrees outside. So I think that steps are something that mostly everybody can do. You don't have to jog. You don't have to run. But if you do steps, you're burning calories. Every time you walk a mile, you burn roughly 100 calories. And so American Heart says 8,000, but I aim for 12 because I'm interested in more than just getting my heart into better shape in terms of my resting heart rate. I'm also trying to keep my weight from doing that, older age person thing where it just kind of rises with every decade. So I aim for 12,000 steps. I hit it most days. I used to be at 15, but I just have trouble getting to that level at this point, so I don't get my extra credit points now. That takes me almost hour and 40 minutes to 2 hours a day of walking in order to do that. But if you're going to invest in your health, it's better that than, watching some, Netflix, whatever, Amazon, whatever, some binge type of thing. So that's, when it comes to resistive exercise, like, isometrics and either bench pressing, I'm not as keen on those, mostly because I don't understand the benefits of those as much, because they don't affect, if anything, they slow heart rate when you're doing them because of this Valsalva effect that people get when they weight lift or do isometrics. And there are people that believe a mix of aerobic heart rate increasing versus anaerobic heart rate reducing, like isometrics and bench pressing type things. A mix is probably a good idea. But I'm kind of the old school camp here, and I probably should be educated more about this, but I tend to do what I can do, which is to walk and try and visit the gym at least once, best case scenario, twice a week, 30 to 40 minutes at a crack when I get to the gym.
Yeah, I think that the guidelines call out a combination of both, perhaps being if someone has the time to do some of that cardiovascular exercise, the walking or jogging or whatever they can do at their level of fitness, and then some form of resistance training. And there was even things in the guidelines and some research that stood out to me that I thought was interesting. Some of those isometric exercises that people don't they don't need a gym or equipment to do. And I called out some of those in a previous episode, but I can perhaps put a link to that into the show notes, because there are things you can do up against the wall at home or in the office without any equipment that seems to have a significant impact on blood pressure. I recently ran my full labs through Function Health, and I have to say the results were eye-opening. Turns out my ApoB was higher than ideal, probably thanks to a little too much coconut yogurt. I also found out I was slightly low in copper, something that I would have never suspected without testing. On the flip side, my biological age came back 13.3 years younger than my actual age, a calculation based on the work of aging researcher Dr. Morgan Levine. So all in all, I've got a few tweaks to make to optimize my lipids and nutrient status, but overall my blood work says I'm doing pretty well. That's what I love about Function. You get access to over 160 biomarkers covering everything from hormones and inflammation to nutrients, toxins, cardiovascular risk, and more. And all your results are housed in one beautiful platform, all tracked over time. Once you get your results, you can make informed changes before small issues become big ones. To get started, head to functionhealth.com/Simon Hill. The first 1,000 people get a $100 credit toward their membership. That's functionhealth.com/Simon Hill.